He started speaking in my father's voice. It began on a Sunday afternoon, the kind of gray, humming day that sits heavy on your shoulders and dares you to notice it. We were driving back from the lake, my daughter asleep in the back seat, my wife humming quietly to the static-ridden radio. That's when I saw it, something bright and ragged darting between the hedges at the side of the road. At first I thought it was just a scrap of garbage. Then it moved again. A splash of green. Feathers. I stopped the car. "Is that a bird?" my wife asked, already half out of her seat. We found him huddled beneath a bush, feathers dulled and ragged, eyes sunken. A parrot. No tag, no sign of anyone looking for him. Just a shivering, strange little thing, staring up at me like he'd been waiting. When I picked him up, he didn't fight. He didn't even flinch. He just blinked once, slow and deliberate. That was the first time I should have known something was wrong. Birds don't look at you like that. Like they recognize you. We brought him home. My daughter named him Captain. He didn't speak at first. Most parrots, even the talkative breeds, need time. But Captain was silent. Not mute, just waiting. He perched in the corner of the living room and watched. Always watching. The first words came 5 days later. We were eating dinner. Quiet, peaceful. And then from the living room, that voice. "Turn off the lights. They're coming." It was my father's voice. He died 5 years ago. The room went silent. My wife looked at me, confused, laughing nervously. "Did you teach him that?" I hadn't. No one had. I got up and walked to the cage. Captain tilted his head and looked at me. "Close the door. Don't let them in," he whispered. Exact cadence. Exact voice. The hair on my arms stood up. We tried to laugh it off. Maybe he'd picked it up from a video, maybe a memory clip had played somewhere, but deep down I knew. He was repeating something I hadn't heard in years. Something that no one in our house had said. The next week, the dreams began. I saw cages. Hundreds of them. All stacked in a room without windows. Something moved in the shadows between them, shapes like people but not. The air was thick with feathers and rot. And in the center of it all, a green bird, much like Captain, its eyes glowing faintly in the dark. I'd wake up gasping, always hearing the same thing in my head. "He knows what you did." Captain's vocabulary expanded quickly. He started mimicking my daughter's voice perfectly. He'd call from the hallway at night, asking for water, asking to be tucked in. But she'd already be asleep. When we'd check, the hallway would be empty, and Captain would be sitting silently in his cage, facing the wall. Then he began to ask questions. "Why did you forget me? Where did you bury me? What happened to the river?" My wife began to avoid the living room. My daughter stopped naming him Captain. She started calling him the other man. We tried moving him to another room. It didn't help. The voice followed. One night, I woke up to find the parrot perched on the foot of our bed, staring at me. The cage was still locked. He spoke a single sentence, cold and calm. "You used to call me Dad." I threw the cage out the next morning. Took it to the woods. Let him go. But he came back. 3 days later, he was perched on the porch, soaked from the rain, staring through the glass. He didn't move. Didn't blink. Just waited. I didn't let him in. That night, we found the words scratched into the mirror in our bathroom. "Let me in." He was no longer just a bird. We called a vet. Not the usual kind, the kind who specialized in exotic pets, in birds. She came reluctantly, skeptical, but the moment she laid eyes on Captain, her demeanor changed. She didn't speak much during the checkup. Just kept watching him, occasionally glancing at me like I was the one in the cage. "He's healthy," she said finally, though her voice trembled. "But he's not normal." What do you mean? She paused. You should be careful what you let in here. Parrots, they remember. And some things, once spoken, don't unspeak. Then she left. She didn't charge us. That night, I dreamed of the river again. Not the real one, not the lake where we'd driven past, but a deeper, older river. Thick water, black as ink, flowing backward. At its edge stood a man with green feathers for skin, holding something in his hand, a mirror. He held it up to me, and I saw not my face but a bird's, blinking slowly in confusion, just like Captain did the first day. I began recording Captain. Secretly. I set up a camera and microphone, left them running when the room was empty. The first few hours were uneventful. Some squawks, occasional flapping. Then the whispers began. I remember the fire. They said it was an accident. She screamed. Why did you leave? The voice wasn't mine. Or rather, it was. But younger. Raw. Filled with guilt. A version of me that only existed in one part of my life, a time I never talked about. A night I tried to forget. I played the recording for my wife. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she said something that chilled me. We need to leave. We packed that night. Took only essentials. Left the house behind. Captain stayed. Or so we thought. At the motel, the room was silent. Too silent. My daughter curled up against me, my wife staring blankly at the TV. Static hissed. Then came the knock. 3 sharp taps. Not on the door. On the window. He was perched outside. Eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Head tilted. In his beak was a feather. Not green. Gray. Human gray. We drove all night. He followed. Not always visibly. But in the corner of mirrors, in flickers between streetlights, in the static on radios. Once, I found a feather on my pillow. Once, I heard my daughter talking to someone through the bathroom door. When I opened it, she stood there smiling. Captain says you're going to remember soon. Remember what? I began to dream with my eyes open. I saw the cages again. I saw my hands locking one shut. I saw fire. Screams. I saw a boy holding a bird, crying, and someone pulling him away, whispering, he's gone. You have to let go. I saw myself. As a child. And I remembered. It wasn't the first time I'd found Captain. Not even the second. He always came back. He always found me. Each time in a new form, a new voice. Sometimes as a whisper, sometimes as a scream. But always him. Always the bird who knew too much. The bird who was more than a bird. The bird I once left in a burning house, locked in a cage. And he had waited. Not just years. Lives. I tried to outrun him. Tried to escape the memory, the voice. But wherever we went, he followed. Not just in body, but in thought. In guilt. My daughter stopped sleeping. My wife began to hum strange songs, songs my grandmother used to sing, songs I never told her about. The motel lights flickered. The plumbing spoke in tongues. We moved again. Then again. But each time, a feather. A word. A dream. Until finally, one night, I woke to find myself in the forest. Alone. No memory of leaving the house. Captain was there. He perched on a branch above me, looking down. Then he dropped something into my hands. A key. Old. Rusted. Familiar. I looked around. Cages. Hundreds of them. The air reeked of soot and memory. I was back. Back where it started. Back where I had burned it all. I opened one cage. Inside, a bird. It looked up at me and spoke. It's your turn now. The bird stepped out of the cage without hesitation. Its feathers shimmered green, yes, but threaded with streaks of gold and red, like veins of flame preserved in glass. It landed on my shoulder with a soft weight and leaned in. You always forget, it whispered. But not this time. The forest bent around us. Trees tilted like watchers, their bark split with faces I almost recognized, fragments of memory, fragments of people I'd known and lost. The cages hummed. Some were empty. Some were not. I couldn't see what was inside the others. I didn't want to. Captain, if I could still call him that, pointed with his beak. A single cage sat apart from the others, shrouded in shadow, wrapped in chains. That's where you left yourself, he said. I moved toward it. With every step, my limbs grew heavier. My breath came harder. My ears rang with voices I couldn't tune out. You promised you'd come back. You said you loved him. You lied. I reached the cage. The key in my hand trembled. My fingers were no longer mine, long, thin, feathered. My skin itched with a memory of flight. I turned the key. The cage clicked open. Inside was a boy. Not a bird. A boy, maybe 10, with dark hair and eyes too big for his face. He looked up at me with a face warped by sorrow, and in his hands he clutched a small green bird, limp, broken. Me. He was me. The moment I realized it, the ground split open. Flames licked at the edges of the forest. The cages screamed, metal and voice blending into one unholy howl. The boy in the cage stood, still holding the bird, and stepped forward. You left me to burn, he said. I didn't know. You did. He held out the bird. You killed him. No. You killed us both. He shoved the dead bird into my chest and the world shattered. I woke up in the motel, soaked in sweat. My wife was gone. My daughter gone. Only the parrot remained. He sat at the foot of the bed, waiting. He didn't speak. I did. I remember. He nodded once. Then he said the last thing I ever heard him say. It's time. We went back to the house. Back to the place we'd fled. It was empty. Cold. A husk. But it remembered. The walls whispered. The mirrors pulsed. The corners bent. And the bird grew quiet. I took him to the attic. There, beneath the boards, I found the old mirror. The one I'd hidden. The one that had belonged to my father. The one that never showed your face quite right. I held Captain before it. He stared. And in the reflection, I saw it. Not me. Not the bird. The boy. The child. Holding a mirror of his own. And in his mirror. Me. Older. Afraid. Trapped. I dropped the mirror. It didn't break. Captain turned to me, feathers falling like dust. You understand now, he said. You always did. You just chose not to. Then he stepped into the mirror. Not walked. Stepped. Like the glass was a doorway and he was done being here. The room grew still. I stood there for hours. Maybe days. Until my wife returned. She said nothing. Just held me. My daughter clutched my leg and asked, "Is the other man gone?" I told her yes. But I knew the truth. You can't kill a ghost you made yourself. You can't bury guilt in cages. And sometimes, birds are not just birds. Sometimes, they're doors. Sometimes, they're mirrors. Sometimes, they're you. This is how it ends. This is how it begins. Again. And again. And again. Until you open the cage. Until you hold the mirror. Until you remember what you did. Or what you were made to forget. And when that day comes, he will whisper your name. And it won't be the name you know. It'll be the one you buried. The one you lost in fire. The one only he remembers. Captain. But not a captain of ships. A captain of secrets. Of cages. Of forgotten things that never died. Only waited. Waited to fly again.